Hi guys, my name's Christian. I'm the lead developer of AI24. If you guys haven't seen any of the previous videos, recommend you go check them out. They'll explain what AI24 is, how it all works, what functions are, how to integrate OpenAI assistants. This video is dedicated on how to make assistants, probably the most useful one, so that you guys can use assistants outside of our ecosystem in AI24. This is completely useful for anyone in the ecosystem. So I'm just going to run you through quickly how it all works. I've been doing AI now for 10 months, so we understand a lot of the work that has gone into this, and we look for the not quickest solution, but the most useful solution. So AI24 was originally developed just for us as a team, but since we already had it developed, we decided to give it away for free. We are now an AI agency, so we actually do create assistants for clients, but we also work with developers, help developers make their assistants, or help developers make assistants for their clients. So if you guys are looking for any guidance or an assistant in general, reach out to us, site24.com.au. You can send us an email, whatever, or a lot of the other virtual marketing work we do is found at eventspace3d.com. So when you are creating an assistant, the first thing you want to do is search for platform.openai.com. It's going to take you to one of these pages, probably the docs page. A lot of this is super useful. You want to read through the docs just so that you understand a lot more about this. You get a better understanding of what tokens are, how much the tokens cost. This is letting you understand how much it's going to cost your client for to actually use the assistant, where GPT-4, which we find is the best one. Obviously, you'd be using 4.0. Don't know why you'd use 10. 4.0 had some downfalls probably 2 or 3 weeks ago when it first came out. It's improved a lot since then, speed-wise, and it's twice as fast, half the price. So what you're going to do first, obviously, if you don't have an account, you're going to come in, make an account. We already have our account, which we are logging in here. So once you log in, you're going to be greeted with this screen, a black screen. Hopefully not. So this is your basic page. Obviously your docs are all here. Like I said, recommend reading through these. The pages seem to change all the time. The API reference is here now. It used to be up the top there. When you're doing the API, a lot of this isn't extremely useful to you guys because this is the API code that we will be integrating in AI24. This is all the updates. So if you guys see stuff in here that you want soon or quicker in the roadmap, please recommend them. You guys can find that just at the bottom here. Send through a name, email, and what you guys would like. When we get enough requests, let's say we get 200-300 people asking for speech integration, we are going to integrate speech because it's a requested feature. We want speech, but we don't have any use for it currently. And we think it'll be an easier integration later down the line. But like I said, if enough people are asking for it, we are going to integrate it. So dashboard, you're going to come here. First thing, playground is just so where you can play around with the completions API. This is just the basic GPT model. Assistants are your custom ones. This is the completion, sorry. I won't go through this at all. This is where you can change a lot of the extra settings. In the assistants, you can't change them as much as this. You can change it through the API. We haven't yet integrated that, but all of these things will become available in the API and in the plugin in the very near future. So in this case, you're going to come into assistants. So some of your websites are going to create assistants through the website. We don't like doing that because when the assistant is created, it's always going to sit here on this end. And any changes that you make, upload a new assistant, it's really annoying. And sometimes we've had 50, 100 useless assistants, unnamed. We don't know what they are when they were made in here. And it's just really confusing. So we'd like to make just one. You're going to come up here in the top right, click create, name your assistant. This is a test assistant. Instructions, I'll go through those in a second. You're going to choose your model. If you want the open model, choose GPT-4. You can choose this single model, but this model here will always point to the latest version, so it's always going to be the most updated. File search is what you're going to be using most of the time. There is a large choice for the the types of documents that you can upload. I don't know where that is currently, but pretty much what we recommend is not using images, not using PDFs, because it takes extra time. The assistant doesn't get accurate information. we find there's 3 file formats that give the best responses. First one is just plain text, gives it easy. The one issue is that the assistant finds it hard to find the relevant information. So if you're uploading a large text document that has, let's say 500,000 characters in it, it's quite a lot of words. It's going to take time for it to read, and it's going to be expensive for it to read because it needs to read the entire document, find the correct information, and then give it back to you. The next one is Markdown. Markdown is a little bit better because you can structure the sentences. This is just formatted text. And that's the integration that we had was text, Markdown. Markdown is good, gives it a little bit more structure, especially in the responses, because a lot of the responses are in Markdown. And the best file format that we found was .json. So JSON sorts all of the files into an array. This way the assistant can search for pieces in the array. The way that a file works is it's something called chunking. There are things called tokens in the OpenAI ecosystem. Pretty much all GPTs, generative pre-trained transformer, are using tokens. It's not a new thing. They all use it. When you upload a document, it's chunked, and it can chunk the text into, we use between 300 to 500 token context, so that each time it's reading a chunk, it's using 500 tokens to read that, which is quite expensive. So if your file is really big and you're using 2,000 plus tokens and it needs to read 4 or 5 sections, you use 10,000 plus tokens in each response, which 1 million tokens cost $5. 10,000 can rack up quite quickly. And that's in one response. So we want to get it down between 2,000 to 200 per response is our acceptable range. You can have it a little bit higher depending on the assistant and how many requests you're getting per day. But the main thing that you're going to be doing when you're working with your clients in the assistant is trying to get it as cheap as possible. So obviously you'll be charging their token prices. The model that we use is we use credit systems. So we do $500 of credit for the 1 to 3 month period. Once the 3 month period runs out and let's say the 500 credit hasn't been used, it still resets and you have to pay another 500. But on top of that, we pay a monthly fee, which is between $200 to $1,000, depending on how big the assistant is, where we are going in and optimizing the files, optimizing the information it requires to make sure that the cost of your assistant is as low as possible so that you can get 1, the higher conversion, and 2, a cheaper price for those conversions. That's our entire goal with the assistant, and that should be your entire goal with working with someone. So when you have file search on, you can not have JSON as just the response, which is unfortunate. We want JSON as just the response when we are when you're fine-tuning the models. But like I said in a previous video, you can't have GPT-4 fine-tuned, unless it's a special request or you've already been given permission from OpenAI. So the biggest reduction you will find in your response is this. When it queries the file, it'll use an amount of tokens to find the response, and then it'll give an amount of responses and then decide which one is the best response. And in this case, it's making 20 responses and choosing from one. We find never put it on 1. You will not ever get good responses, but from 5 and under, we use between 2 and 5 on most is where you get good responses, and they're pretty much just as accurate as the one above 20. You can save 70% by reducing it this much. Code interpreter, not often used, depends. This is very much for specialized, and you wouldn't be giving this out often. Functions, very useful. We ran through that in the last video. All you have to do is here, chuck in your function schema, put it in there, and then you'd integrate it into the into AI24 in the backend. Temperature. This is the amount of this is how random the responses are. So if you have a customer service agent that needs to be really different and happy and fun in each response, you'd keep your temperature quite high. For the ones on my site 24, you can see I have it as low as 0.35. This one is at 0.3. This is just so that the responses can be reliable and they can always be similar. This makes far, in our opinion, far better. Top P, I recommend keeping it pretty high. It doesn't have to be extremely high. When the assistants are making responses, it's creating words and sequences. And out of the words in a sequence that it thinks is most likely, this changes how many of those words are going to be considered. So the lower this comes, the more repetitive. It's similar to temperature. It's a little bit different though. in that if you want something that's very repetitive and can be relied on all the time to have the same response, then you'd want this a little bit lower. But we find that the temperature low and the top here a little bit higher gives us the best results. You guys recommend having a little bit of a play around so that it makes more sense to you. When you've made your assistant, please have a go with it in the playground. You need to test the responses. You need to see how reliable it is. This is where you find when you do, this is a test prompt. It'll tell you up here how much it's going to cost in tokens. This doesn't cost you anything. This is just the playground. So it's cost 600 tokens, 586 in, 223 out. So it's $5 for every million in tokens, and it's 15 for every out. You'll always have way more in tokens than out. Or most of the time for the assistants that we create, that is always the case. So once your assistant is created, you can't use it on the website unless you're paying the API fees. And to actually use the assistant, I may have this wrong because we haven't made a new account in a while, but you have to go to, it's probably here. I actually forgot to say this in the beginning, sorry. You're always going to be in your default project. We don't recommend you make any assistants in here. You're going to do create project. We obviously either make different OpenAI accounts for different people, or we chuck them in here. So make a new project, then make the assistant in here. In my case, I just made the assistant in here. You can see threads here. These are all the conversations that have been had with the assistant. So every time someone talks to your assistant here, we are storing all the threads in our error table, which is something that you guys can do with the custom functions as well. We have two defined. You can find those in the change logs if you want to use them. But we have our leads here. The threads do come up in here as well. Sorry, yeah, okay, it's under settings. So you guys are going to need to go, before you can use the assistant, you're going to have to go to settings, billing, and you guys are going to have to add a minimum of $5 or the assistant will not work. You have to add, you don't need a recurring, but if you don't have a card linked to it and you run out of credit in the account, then the assistant will obviously stop working. So it's best to have a card linked, maybe keep it up $20 at a time so it's not topping up a ton. But it's best to keep track of your assistant so that you see how many tokens it's using each run. Regardless, that is how the assistant works. Once you have the assistant created, the way to integrate it is create a new secret key, name the key. This is a test. Site24, create the key, copy it. Once you click done, you won't be able to get it back, so you have to delete it and make a new one. We can come into the dashboard of your WordPress page, go into AI24, chuck your OpenAI key in here, unlock it, boom, place it in, and then yes, you can't change it while it's locked. When it's unlocked, you can change it. So paste that in. Obviously, I'm going to delete this one, but because this is the actual key that we are using. Then you want to hop in here, find your assistant, and this is the assistant ID. Gonna copy that, come in, paste your assistant ID in there, and that's it. It actually works already. So once you choose your widget styling, which again is in one of the previous videos, choose your stuff here. We have a sidebar, boom, boom, boom. Come in, click it, and you can already speak to the assistant. So once the assistant is made, it takes less than 2 minutes to actually integrate it on the website. And then all the iteration and upgrades to the assistant itself are going to happen on the platform here on this website. But again, really appreciate you guys watching. Stick around for the other videos. Have a play around with the assistants. Send us your suggestions, send us your bugs. And other than that, share it around if you guys can. Appreciate you watching. Have an awesome day.